Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FBC Radio Live. It is Thursday, February the 9th. And, we're just a few days away from the Super Bowl and still waiting for it to really get hyped up and start to, really make it feel like it's Super Bowl week. Unfortunately for the NFL, it really hasn't happened yet. And John, there's reasons for that, and I want to throw something out at you. I want to play a little game. I'm gonna play a game of in hindsight. Like, let me ask you something. What if I told you, pretend you're a Brooklyn Nets fan.
Mm-hmm.
You just acquired Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden. You have this big three that you're thinking, all right, this is gonna compete for an NBA title. And imagine you turn all of that into Ben Simmons. Think about that. You have all of that, and you ultimately end up with no titles, nothing really to get excited about, except for, not that you're going to get excited about it, but, an embarrassing playoff loss. But yeah, nothing to show for it except for Ben Simmons, a point guard who can't shoot.
Yeah, you could paint it that way for sure. Yeah, when this team was assembled and Kyrie and Durant were free agent signings back in 19, and then they traded for James Harden and looked like a sure title contender, and then Harden got injured in the playoffs and Kyrie got injured in the playoffs, and they lost a tough second-round series to the Bucks in 7 games. And I think at some point, Joe Tsai, the owner of the Nets, who essentially is the Jeff Bezos of China, right? It's like his money was made in the Amazon version in China, just said enough of this, and I've got to move on from these guys. And I think they did a pretty decent job, actually, in getting back some pieces. Cam Johnson's a nice player. Mikal Bridges is a outstanding wing defender and a good scorer as well. They got that from Phoenix for Kevin Durant. You also got Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a nice player. But all those draft picks, look, the draft picks they got from Phoenix could be really valuable because they're in 23, 25, 27, and 29. By 27 and 29, I don't know what Phoenix is going to be because Chris Paul and Kevin Durant will probably be long gone.
Yeah.
So those picks could be really, really good. So I think they were just in a reset mode, and they just said, you know what? Even with Kyrie and Durant, are we even going to contend because these guys aren't reliable? Let's move on and start fresh and try to have a team that might be a pain in the butt type team that will give some team a tough first round series and bow out, but at least it's a team that's more likable. And now you start the rebuilding process. So I think they did what they had to do.
Well, and again, you're building, like you said, something had to give with this situation, and give credit where credit's due. Sometimes you just have to realize when, despite the fact that, look, they were, we talked about it last week or earlier this week, they were right there in the mix of things. Maybe not as good as the Bucks and Celtics, but certainly, a really good regular season team. What happened in the playoffs obviously will remain to be seen. But so this wasn't like a team that was completely in the tank, and you're just like, all right, well, we got to blow it up. No, this was a pretty risky move in the sense that, like, yeah, you're giving up. In the span of a calendar year, you've given up 3 former MVP. Well, Kyrie was never an MVP, but 2 former MVPs and a guy who's arguably the best handler of the basketball in the league and one of the best players in the league. So that's not an easy thing to do if you're a management of any team, let alone a team as high profile as the Nets. But to your point, sometimes this is probably the classic example of addition by subtraction, and not necessarily additions to the win column right away. But they replenished a lot of what they gave up to get these guys, and to some extent what they did to give up to get like guys like Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm with you. This had to be done. I don't think you would really have to have caught lightning in a bottle for this team to go win a championship as it was presently constituted with the personalities on this team. It's not that they were short of talent. I don't think anyone's sitting there pretending like that team didn't have talent. It was just they clearly, it just didn't mesh right. And I don't know if it's not necessarily because Kyrie and Kevin Durant didn't get along. I think they kind of got along just fine. I just think it's just a combination of things that just didn't mix. You know what I'm saying? It just
Mhm.
for whatever reason, and I think again the Nets recognize that, um, and good for them for moving on. But yeah, this is going to look like a completely different team next time they hit the court.
Yeah, so they're in reset mode. They go from there. Those draft picks are going to be valuable again because we don't know what Phoenix is going to be 3-4 years down the road. So those could be really valuable draft picks. I think when Durant was healthy this year, they looked like a title contending team.
Mm,
But at this point in his career, he's 35. He's missed a lot of games. He's had a lot of injuries. Do you really think he's going to be Kevin Durant by the time you get to the postseason? We
right.
thought last year in the 4-game sweep against the Celtics, he was not himself. He had probably one good game in those 4 games against the Celtics, and Kyrie Irving had one good game in the 4 games against the Celtics. So both of those guys have had injury concerns, durability questions, so that by the time they get to the playoffs, what are they? So
Yeah.
now Durant's in Phoenix, and now Phoenix has 2 guys that you have to question how they're going to be by the time you get to April, May, and maybe June. Chris Paul and Kevin Durant. You also have to look at what is Kyrie Irving going to be in Dallas by the time you get to the postseason. Those are major question marks because it's a long season, and then the postseason is incredibly long, and sometimes these guys just don't have much left in the tank. So again, that's going to be the big question for these 2 teams, Phoenix and Dallas, who now are both title contenders because the West is wide open.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, wild, wild west. I mean, it's pretty nuts. And here you are, LeBron James, the league's all-time leading scorer, sitting back watching. Well, really, nothing really happened. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think Brooklyn was interested in dealing Kyrie Irving to the Lakers, regardless of if they gave him the better package or not. But yeah, we talked about this with the Kyrie Irving trade, though. This has the potential to be a home run. For Phoenix. I mean, you're right, though. You're banking very heavily on the health of 2 35-plus-year-olds. And trust me, speaking from experience, it's not a sure bet to bank on the health of those players. And trust me, those 2 are in far better shape than I am. But the point is if they are healthy, and it's such a big if. And really, the biggest risk comes in the playoffs because that's when intensity grows. And you can't just take a night off here and there, and you're playing every other night. So you're basically holding your breath the entire rest of the season and the postseason as long as the Suns are in it, if you're Phoenix, because this isn't a future building move. You're not doing this to set yourself up for the future. You're doing this to win a championship, preferably this year, because I mean, beyond this year, I mean, again, there's a lot more question marks moving on. I mean, if you want to sit here and say, yeah, you know what, I feel pretty good about Kevin Durant being healthy for the next 4 months. Okay, you can get behind that. If they lose this year and you're like, well, I feel pretty confident in Kevin Durant and this team being healthy and Chris Paul being healthy for the next 16 months. And you're like, I don't know about that, especially a year older. So this is a win now move, but it could be an absolute home run if it all works out.
Yeah, I like the idea of the chemistry with the guys in Phoenix more so than in Dallas because Kevin Durant, say what you want about him, he's seamless. I mean, when he walks onto the court with any teammate, it works because he's such an efficient player. He fits in well with others. Look what he did in Golden State. And I know the talent was otherworldly, but it worked perfectly there. I think he's a very easy guy to play with. Kyrie's a little bit different. He's more ball dominant and, again, less reliable than Kevin Durant. So, yeah, you've got Chris Paul, who, by the way, is almost as old as LeBron James. And point guards don't age well. So we have to obviously take a good hard look at him to see what kind of condition he's in by the time we get to the playoffs. They've also got Devin Booker, who, let's not forget, was first team All NBA last year. He's a superstar. So you have those 3 guys. And, oh, by the way, they didn't have to part with DeAndre Ayton, who's a really good center. So they come at you with 4 legitimate studs if they can stay healthy. Right now, they're the second betting choice in Vegas behind only the Celtics to win the championship because Durant is that good. I think it's going to work really well. But again, the health concerns are the biggest question mark.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to it can be a home run because Kevin Durant is a difference maker. This is a guy that I think he gets a lot of unwarranted slack for going to Golden State. I think there's a lot of you can look at what he did under the pressure, realizing that you know what, if I want to win a championship, I have an opportunity to go play with this really great team. And you know what? Not only did he do that, he lived up to the bill. And
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about it before. We talk about Golden State being a super team. They're not a super team without Kevin Durant because they don't win after, you know what I mean, after that 73 win season without Kevin Durant, and the importance of Kevin Durant within that whole mesh of players, I think cannot be understated. So I think he picks up a lot of unneeded slack for that. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who knows how to win and knows how to show up in big moments. And it doesn't mean he does it all the time. I mean, no player is perfect. But if healthy, you're talking about a team who just went to the finals a few years ago. They have some nice young talent, but this is a team built to win right now with the two old guys, and you're just hoping that they stay healthy. Because if they stay healthy, like you said, I like the mesh of players on the Suns better than I do the Mavericks. Like we talked about the whole Kyrie Luka thing. That's something that could really, we have concerns about the health of the Suns, and there's obviously health with Kyrie, but I think it's more personality with Kyrie and Luka, and wondering whether or not that's going to mesh well, because there's a chance that might not, and that could derail whatever they're trying to do. So if you're going to ask me which situation do I like better, I by far the Suns.
Oh, without question, because you have Devin Booker, who's right there among one of the top 10 players in the league. He's the guy that no one's really talking about right now, because Kevin Durant's going to finally play with a true point guard in Chris Paul, right? I mean, he played with Russell Westbrook, he played with Kyrie Irving, played with Steph Curry, all great players, but Chris Paul's more of the old school point guard, so he's going to set up Durant beautifully on offense. He'll also set up Devin Booker. So now Chris Paul's going to feel like a great quarterback, breaking the huddle and looking out and saying, man, I've got Devontae Adams on one side and I got Justin Jefferson on the other side. I've got my options. I can really have a great passing attack. That's what Chris Paul's going to face. So I think it's going to work perfectly in Phoenix. Yeah, Dallas, because again, Luka's still very young. He's very emotional. He's an alpha male without question. And now you've got Kyrie, who just seems to be a guy who's always a contrarian, right? Like he always seems to be a guy that's going to come in and really kind of mess things up. Whereas I think Durant just wants to play basketball, doesn't need to be the leader. The leader of the Phoenix Suns would be Chris Paul. He's really good at that stuff. With Dallas, it's going to be like, is Luka ready to be the leader? Is Kyrie going to go along? That could, again, there's going to be games, Ian, if we watch Dallas play, that's going to be pure artistry with those two guys. It's going to be incredible basketball to watch. And then there's going to be games we watch and say, that's never going to work.
Yeah, and you're going to sit there and say, how could these players just look so dysfunctional all the time? It'll be feel like Tom Brady and Mike Evans last season. Like, what the hell's going on? How can they not get on the same page? But and look, I mean, that's the thing with, you brought it up with leadership, Kevin Durant, and it helps too that he has a peer, and again, both are great players. I think Kevin Durant is obviously on another level than Chris Paul, but that's someone on his level, on his tier, in terms of not only age, but accomplishments and success and individual success. Certainly, obviously, Chris Paul doesn't have the NBA title success. So I think, every player is going to have an ego, but I don't think Durant's going to have any problem taking I'm not going to say backseat, but you know what I'm saying, like taking the second, the passenger seat, so to speak, to Chris Paul, and that's fine, because like you said, he can just play basketball. And I think that's what he wants to do. And I think if he goes out there and helps the Suns to a championship, I think that maybe that might soften some of the harsh Durant critics out there. But we know with the NBA that it's really, discussion around the NBA is kind of nonsensical when you think about it. With a lot of the fans, there's people are set in their ways, and it's nothing's ever going to change. If you think Kevin Durant's a snake, well, guess what? He's a snake for the rest of his life, and nothing's going to change it. And it was super teams, and it was jump to this, or he did that, and blah 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 blah. So,
the people that criticize him oftentimes went and joined super teams on their own. Look, I love Charles Barkley. I think he's the best basketball analyst out there, incredibly entertaining. Loved him as a player, but he would knock guys for joining together with super teams. Well, he went with Scottie Pippen to join Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, that sounds like a super team to me, doesn't it? I mean,
he's just upset he never won an NBA title. He knows it. Like if you ask him, he'd be like, yeah, that's it.
I mean, Shaq reminds him every Tuesday and Thursday. Every time they're talking, he goes, "Hey, I got 4 of these. How many you got?" Eddie Smith who sits in between them has two on his own. But isn't it incredibly? And we're 3 days away from the Super Bowl, and here we are talking about basketball. Now, I was kind of perplexed that the trade deadline was going to be on February 9th, which is like 3-4 weeks earlier than normally is. Maybe the NBA planned this, or they're just dumb lucky, because all of a sudden, no one's talking about the Super Bowl. You got Kyrie gets traded, Durant gets traded, and in between all of that, LeBron becomes the league's all-time leading scorer.
And finally gets rid of Russell Westbrook.
Right. Yeah, no one's even talking about Westbrook going away to Utah, of all places, where he's had problems with the fans. Like that's going to be a bleep show as well. I mean, he literally got into it with fans with, some racist comments targeted at him. So is he going to play in Utah? They're going to buy him out. Who knows where Russell Westbrook? He might play a game in Utah and be moved quickly in the buyout market. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, no one's even talking about that move, and that's a pretty good sized move because I think the Lakers did improve themselves. D'Angelo Russell tried the number 9 pocket at D'Angelo's, one of my favorites. I think he's going to help the Lakers without question.
Oh, D'Angelo's, I miss that. I haven't had a good D'Angelo sub in a long time. So
with Steve's ice cream too. You remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh man. See, now I'm getting hungry. It's 9:30 in the morning, and I want a steak and cheese sub. That's what I want. So
I'm right with you. But Steve's ice cream, the original Steve's, was in Somerville, Mass, my hometown. I knew the guys that started it. Same guys who started Bertucci's.
Oh,
the Grugnano brothers.
Okay, all right. Wow, little facts you learn. You pick up on FPC Radio Live for anyone who's is interested in the history of old Massachusetts. So, and actually, hey, you know what? Based on some of our listeners, they might be. So, anyway, so yeah, we I'll give you, because we didn't get a chance to do this the other day, obviously because we weren't on the air, but since we're on the topic of the NBA, I will give you a chance to kind of, I think people, for a lot of reasons, we've been anticipating LeBron passing, the league's all-time scoring mark for a long time. It's been talked about to exhaustion. LeBron's talked about it to exhaustion. I mean, he's not afraid to self-promote. I mean, no one's less afraid to do that than LeBron James. It seems, I don't know, it seems a little kind of like people are just like, all right, thank God it's over with. Let's just move on. Am I missing something?
No, I think you're right on, Ian. Look, for me, it was a fait accompli. I mean, we're counting it down, and it's a lot easier to determine when it's going to happen than, say, the home run record, because a guy could go 10 games without hitting a home run. Remember, Aaron Judge was chasing Maris's AL mark, and it took him a while to get to number 61 and 62. So home runs are a lot more difficult to hit than scoring points on a basketball court. But I think part of it is that the Lakers aren't all that good. He's still fantastic. He's still one of the top 7-8 players in the league. He's playing at an incredibly high level. I thought it was really cool that Kareem was there, and the way Kareem handed him the ball, that was a really good moment. It's like Kareem, who's kind of a shy guy, to say the least. I mean, he's not out there all that much. He's the anti-Shaq. You don't see much of Kareem, but the way he just handed him the ball is just to say, you're now the all-time leading scorer. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't think they have any relationship. I don't think they really care for each other, LeBron and Kareem, but they put up a good front because they're both Lakers. Yeah. So, yeah, it didn't seem like it was as big a deal. It's not as big a record as the home run record, but because we just kind of counted it down. And again, they're on the outside looking in, and they're 13th in the Western Conference right now. And they ended up losing that game to Oklahoma City, which kind of takes a little bit away from that.
Well, I also think this too, and this is, it's kind of like the, live long enough and, the hero thing. I'm going to butcher that quote, but you know what I'm saying. Anyone out there with any bit of intelligence knows what I'm talking about, which
certainly not us. But
certainly not us, but someone out there is going to understand what I'm saying. And then when you figure it out, get back to me so I can try to figure out what I'm saying. Look, I think, a handful of years ago, LeBron had a broader fan base. I think now it's kind of down to Lakers fans and his hardcore stans. You know what I mean? So I think general fans, it's to the point where obviously they recognize his greatness, but they're just kind of just tired. It's exhausting because, like I said, I mean, look, I appreciate LeBron. I like watching him play. I like, obviously I know he's a great player. one of, if not the all-time great. But I've said it so long. I mean, the guy's exhausting. I mean, let's be
Hmm.
honest. I mean, it's exhausting listening to him talk sometimes. I mean, I kind of jokingly said he's not ashamed to self-promote. Well, I mean, no. I mean, the guy will shamelessly self-promote, and I think that turns off a lot of fans, especially now where it's like I was saying, the countdown. You just at this point they've talked about it for so long, and whether it's true or not, there's this perception out there that it doesn't really matter if he's winning. Like, you brought up the situation where the Lakers stink, and like I think the perception out there, again, fair or not, accurate or not, there's a perception out there that he doesn't really care necessarily about it. It's more or less, well, he's getting 38 a night and adding to his legacy, and this is only adding to, well, look what's around him. Oh, LeBron can only do so much. So I think there's an element of just kind of like, okay, it happened, let's move on. For
Right.
most fans, outside of obviously the well, not even all Lakers fans, because there's a weird,
Oh, that is a strange one.
yeah, rivalry
Oh, yeah.
between like legit Lakers fans and Braun Lakers fan. I don't know. It's weird,
A
but
lot of them still despise him. I mean, because when Kobe was around, the argument was Kobe or LeBron, right? So all the Laker fans who loved Kobe and loved Magic, they were never going to give LeBron his due. And like I said before, be as if Peyton Manning, late in his career came to play for the Patriots after Tom Brady retired. Would all Patriot fans embrace Peyton Manning? Probably not, because they spent a lot of time pushing back against him. So yeah, there's that. I think LeBron went to LA for different reasons. He did win a title there,
yeah,
which is important. But I think he went there to increase his net worth, make connections with movie studios, to grow his brand. It seems like everybody wants to live in Southern California. Why not? The weather's great. The opportunities are great. Eventually, he's going to own an NBA team. So I think he went there for that reason. In a sense, Jordan went to the Wizards because he was interested in maybe buying into the Wizards. It ended up buying the Charlotte Hornets instead. So he didn't go there because it was the best place to win. So now he's kind of in a different mode, which is kind of a turnoff because I'd like to see him get a fifth title, because my argument that he's the greatest player ever is a little stronger.
yeah,
Now everybody's debating, is he the greatest player ever? It didn't change from last week or the other night by him becoming the all-time leading scorer. We knew that was going to happen. He is exhausting. He is, because I think in my lifetime, and I'm older than you, but the two most scrutinized athletes ever, from beginning to end of their career, without question, and it's not Michael Jordan, it's not Tom Brady, all-time greats. I mean, freaks of nature. It's Tiger Woods and it's LeBron James, right? Because those are the guys that were prodigies from a very young age. I mean, the guy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16. Tiger was on the Mike Douglas show at 3, swinging golf clubs. So those guys have been under incredible scrutiny since they were very, very young. I think after a while, you're like, okay, we've had enough of these guys. And Tiger did go away for different reasons. And he was never quite like LeBron. But yeah, LeBron's been out there now for over 20 years. And I think there's probably a segment of society that's like, okay, we know you're great. He does incredible.
We know you're
work.
great.
Right, exactly. And it could be, and I'm not going to offend you on this again, because sometimes I'm a pop psychologist, but he's an only child.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of leads into how you deal with certain things. I mean, look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady has 3 older sisters. So I think he was always a guy who wanted to please, right? He was the baby brother. He's probably spoiled, like I was. I'm the youngest of 5. But, you always wanted to please your older siblings. An only child, you have to stand on your own. Sometimes you have to make your own mark. And I think that that's part of it, too.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously, like I said, there's I mean, it's 24/7 news cycle. I mean, everything that they do and say is going to get dissected. Everything that happens is going to get dissected. Oh, did Anthony Davis, was he sitting? Did he not care during the final shot? Oh my God. Okay, here we go. Here's first take for the next 6 months. So
Anthony Davis didn't look excited when they won the title. I don't think he cares about anything. I think he likes the Packers.
Yeah.
He's a big Packers fan. He might have been more excited about,
maybe he's just playing basketball to afford Packers tickets or something. I don't know. That's all it is. He's just sticking around so he can keep going to Packers games or whatever, or keep buying fake stock whenever they offer it up. But so I'm actually kind of glad everything happened last night, because the reality of it is, if the Super Bowl is just not. I mean, I'll get excited for like the game itself when it kicks off, but even like the day of. I mean, the Super Bowl is always a chore. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
it's like the holidays, John. There's aspects of it that you love, but there's a lot of it that it's work. It's busy work. It's chore like, and quite frankly, it's not fun. So here we are, just like, all right, let's just get this game over with. Let's get it played because I think the football on the field is going to be fun, but it's just lacking a lot of substance. It's like you mentioned it the other day. It's two teams that have recently won Super Bowls. They're not like poverty franchises. I think, if you're going to rank insufferable fan bases, you're going to have these two teams near the top of the list.
Hmm.
So there's no, and I think you mentioned this too. There's no, oh, it's the Bengals. I want to see the Bengals win. The poor old Bengals, or I don't know. It's not there. So maybe tomorrow when we come back on Friday, obviously we're going to give our picks and everything like that. But maybe we'll dive into some of these prop bets that are starting to pop up, some of the fun ones, and see what we might like putting into. But the reality of it is, I mean, it's going to be a game. It's going to be like I said, I think a good Super Bowl. It's just the build up going into it is just it's non-existent.
Can it be that there's no villain? There's nobody that people are rooting against? And look, Tom Brady's
Well,
greatest quarterback ever.
honestly, I
Was
think
always a guy that was polarizing, right? Like
true.
you either loved him or at some point you were sick of him too. Whereas it's like, oh, these are nice stories. Mahomes is likable, Hurst is likable. Both teams are pretty good. And the other thing too is no one has said anything crazy this week, right? Like normally there's someone on some team that says something absolutely insane. Like I'm waiting for a Philadelphia Eagles, defensive back to say, yeah, Mahomes isn't all that great, and then maybe that stirs up some controversy. I don't know.
I'd say that. Well, I can buy some of that because, like, look, I don't think either team is. There's certain teams that, like, even obviously when your team's out, you can get behind. I think a lot of teams and a lot of fans from a lot of teams certainly hate the Eagles. There's nothing redeeming
Sure.
about Philadelphia if you're not from Philadelphia. And then I think the same thing is with the Chiefs because, like, yes, I think Patrick Mahomes is likable, but we've seen it a lot more this year just because I think the over the top coverage has gone even more over the top.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people, and this is kind of like the LeBron thing. It's like people outside of like Kansas City and like the Mahomes stands, and there's a bunch of them, are just kind of sick of it because they'll mock the because again the NFL shared the incomplete pass, and I kind of sarcastically and ironically, if you want to call it, asked why don't they show highlights from the Super Bowl he actually won? Well, the reason because it wasn't really that good in that Super Bowl either. So
Mhm.
they're highlighting a game incomplete pass and a blowout. So I think people are starting to get sick of that, and you're seeing that more and more from not just fans of the Patriots or the Buccaneers or whoever's in their division. It's you're seeing it from other fan bases, the Colts fans of the world, or like teams that don't necessarily have any stake in that competition. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately though, it's missing a little luster. So maybe something will happen this weekend. They'll get something really pissed off and
Well, did Michael Irvin already kind of do that already? Didn't he get asked to leave by the NFL Network because he was having some issue in a lobby with a woman? Or he said
yeah,
that,
I saw that last
who
night,
knows? I
and
mean,
yeah,
leave it up to Michael Irvin to do something crazy. He's never done that before,
yeah.
has he? But yeah, but there's right. It's just nothing. And maybe because it's in Phoenix, I don't know. I can't quite grasp it. Why there's no pop for this. Sure, the ratings will be good, and the game should be good. These are the two best teams, and but it just the only story really is it's a legacy game for Mahomes, right? Because does he go to 2-1 in the Super Bowl, or is he
Well,
at 1-2?
and I
That's the
think
big story.
that's a big story, but the problem is the wrong story is being. And this was my problem I brought up the other day is it's getting overhyped. That's the problem. So like
Mm-hmm.
the conversation, and I keep saying it should be about Mahomes trying to emerge from that just logjam of great quarterbacks right now that we talk about winning multiple championships. The problem is the media and the mass media are talking about it like he's chasing Tom Brady, and
Mm-hmm.
that turns a lot of people off because again, after a while, you're just like, guys, come on, this is ridiculous. When did he pass all these all time greats? And it's that's what I think is exhausting. So like the hype should be there. It should be talked about, but it's just not being talked about in the right way. So that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no,
So.
I'm with you on that. I think that's a good point, and it just maybe because we don't really have a horse in the fight, like
No,
there's
not
no Rodgers, there's no Brady, but I wanted Cincinnati to go. I mean that was
sure.
so
I mean,
Buffalo or Cincinnati were the two teams I was actually rooting for.
yeah,
Once we
but
got
at
to the
this
postseason.
at the same time, like you can still get kind of hyped up for
Sure.
kind of a generic Super Bowl and just kind of look at it from that sense. Because if you love football, it's like you can remove yourself from being a fan of a certain team and kind of look into
Mhm.
what you're seeing. But yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see. And like I said, I'm excited for the game. I'm just kind of glad that it's almost here, so we don't have to keep dealing with the forced hype. So, anyways, we will be back tomorrow, Friday, and we will give our breakdown and picks for the weekend. Who are we going to pick? I don't know. We'll see. You're going to have to find out. So, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you then.